Hey, thank you so much for making the time. I really appreciate
Oh, thank you. I'm not sure that's
it. Really great to meet you. Awesome. Hey, I read in an article about you recently. You talk about being accessible, and I was thinking this morning, there's nothing more accessible than the head of the Salvos taking the time to talk to a fitness YouTuber. So,
It's great to chat to you. Thank you.
yeah, no, I really appreciate it. I wanted to start by asking you how your first 3 months has been, and maybe you can tell us kind of what your role is now at the Salvos. Yeah.
Sure. It's been a whirlwind 3 months. I was in New South Wales ACT for the past 7 years and 3 years before that in Papua New Guinea. And I guess I describe it as I was having a wonderful time in that place and kind of thinking I might be there for another 3 when all of a sudden I got a call from the General in London saying that I was needed somewhere else and that role would be to lead the Salvos in Australia. So I kind of thought, well, that's kind of big, scary and exciting, and decided that I would say yes and take the challenge. So I've been kind of heading around every state, delighted to hear so many great stories and just believing that we can be hope givers and hope bringers to the people of Australia and beyond.
That's amazing. I love that. And for my audience, I thought it'd be really helpful for me to ask you the question: what do you think, on an individual level, what does someone have to do to experience a life of purpose and fulfillment? And I guess, like, I love what you say about being accessible. Like, as a leader, often in corporations and churches, it can be all about the hierarchy and the titles and the positions. And it's really refreshing to hear a leader say, you know what, I want to be accessible. And I think on an individual level, often we isolate ourselves and we don't want to be accessible to people because it can be inconvenient, or people can be annoying and hard work. But what would you say what can someone do if they want to experience a life of purpose and fulfillment on like a personal, individual level?
Yeah, I guess I was pretty blessed. I grew up in a family that loved me to bits and said you can do anything, be anything. So I always believed that, which was wonderful. I have lived by a little mission statement, which is live, love, and make a difference. So live life to the full every day, love God, people, myself, and then make a difference in someone's life every day. So if you're not with people, if you're not doing life with them, you're never going to be able to do that. So I think, people are to be enjoyed. We've got to hear people's stories. We've got to give them a voice. And sometimes, the initial contact isn't really where they want to go. So how do we dig deep with people to find out who they are and really love them? Because I think people feel so isolated, so lonely. And that's not just those who are doing it tough right now. We all go through things like that. So who's going to be there for them? And I would hope that I would be always someone who's accessible to those in my pathway. I think the purpose question is really important because I want to give my life to something that's much bigger than me and just see great things happen because of that, whether that be I change one person's life or whether I can, invest in a whole lot of people and make a difference.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I know for myself in my life, whenever I get too inwards focused and it's all about my problems and my situation, all of a sudden life can, feel very small. But as soon as I start looking outwards and actually, like you say, being accessible to others, all of a sudden life feels a lot more meaningful. So yeah, I love that.
Yeah.
Can you tell us, for those who are not aware of the Salvation Army and what they actually do, could you just give us a brief kind of overview? I know you guys do a whole lot, but just a broad scale, what do you guys do? What are you about? Yeah.
It is pretty broad, but let me tell you, and then let me tell you a quick story. So we deal with people who are doing it tough with addictions, so whether that be drugs or alcohol. So we have our recovery places. There are a lot of people who find it really tough to have enough money to put food on the table. And I think that's extending far wider than it was at one stage. We would have places for homelessness. We do aged care services. Whatever you can think of that will help a person to come forward in life, that's what we want to be involved with. So whether that's youth, whether that's adults, whether that's older people, we want to be there for all people. And I think one great story, which probably tells the gamut of what we do, a young lady presented the Salvation Army mainly because her dad brought her kicking and screaming to one of our recovery centres. But when you hear the backstory, you know it was because early on in her life, she went through a pretty traumatic thing and just tried to blot it out. So drugs became her choice. In that place, she says, I found God, but I also went through the 12 steps many times. She said, I actually went through them 3 times. First of all, to get off drugs, but then I still needed help further on. So I had to get off the addiction to sugar and to flour. And then thirdly, and really tragically, her beautiful young daughter committed suicide. And again, she needed people. But she said there have been people who've stood with her all throughout the journey, whether that was her addiction journey or whether it was getting a start in life. And she's the most amazing lady. These days, she fulfilled her childhood dream because she said when she was a kid, it was all about Disneyland, and then it just became a horror film. So she's a school teacher and she gives back to society, and she constantly says to me, if I can ever give back, if I can ever help you, I want to, because I want others to know this. So I kind of think that kind of sums up what we're about. Yes, people come with a presenting need, but then there's a whole lot of needs. So how do we help people in body, mind and soul? And I think that's what the Salvos are about. We don't want to leave anyone in need, and we want to bring hope to every person we come in contact with.
Yeah, that's amazing. And the Salvos has been going for 140 years, is that correct? Something like that? That's
yeah, 140, 150 years, yeah. Started in England and then just spread really rapidly throughout the world. And that's still our catch cry. Heart to God, hand to man, how can we help as many people as possible?
Yeah, that's amazing. And I think for me looking from the outside in, I would say the success of the Salvos has been the integrity when it comes to actually doing the work. It's not just word service. Actually, you know, you guys roll your sleeves up and you get in there and actually and do the work that's required to see the change. And I love that. So how can people be involved, or how can people help out? So often, you know, people get busy and they want to make a difference in the world, but they can't physically, you know, can't physically go and be the person that meets with someone or sets up, you know, a shelter. How can someone help, you know, from the outside?
I think probably through our local places. So, for example, Miranda or Menai or the Shire, people would come into those places and just offer. So all throughout the week, they give out food parcels to people. They cook meals for people. I think the best way you can help is to come alongside a person. And I think sometimes we make it all seem all too hard. So, you know, someone who's escaped from domestic violence and might just need a friend, take someone for a haircut, take them to the pictures, take them for a coffee. There are people who would sit week after week and never see another soul, real loneliness. So how might we just be a friend to them? And if you want to get involved in further ways, you know, you can do some training, become a volunteer. Remember a lovely story of a lady and her husband kept saying to her, go down and volunteer at the Salvo store. You'll meet some people. And she thought, nah, just stay with him. Then he passed away. And she said, I went down to the Salvo store and I cried on their shoulder. She said, they became my family. Now I'm the volunteer and others are crying on my shoulder. So I think, you know, this beautiful story of when we want to become part of community, we want to help someone, then we can do it. I mean, the other way is to give money, and we certainly need money in these days. But however you can contribute, some people don't have that money. Some people have heaps. So what's the contribution I can make? Because I actually think we feel so much better when we're giving back to others, when we're giving to society.
Absolutely.